Good evening, and welcome to the June 3rd business meeting of the Kingsport Board of Mayor and Aldermen. At this time, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Pastor Rick Mead of Lynn Garden Baptist Church. Let's all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you bow with me as we pray? Our gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we would be amiss if we did not begin tonight by thanking you for all the many blessings you pour out upon us every day, including this day. What a beautiful day you have shared with us. And Lord, I thank you for this gathering here tonight, Lord, and I come tonight praying for our board of mayor and aldermen, that, Lord, you would be with them in everything that comes before them tonight, Lord. No doubt there are always challenges anytime they gather together and do business. But God, I pray tonight that you would give them guidance and wisdom to know what is right, and then courage to do what is right. And so, Lord, we thank you again. Lord, I thank you most of all for our Savior, Jesus Christ. For it's in his name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Mead. Mr. Recorder, please call the roll.
Mayor Montgomery.
Here.
Vice Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Alderman Baker. Here. Alderman Cooper. Alderman George.
Here.
Alderman Mays.
Here.
Alderman Phillips.
Here.
Thank you. 6 of 7 members are present, which means we have a quorum. Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, we have no recognitions or presentations on the agenda tonight, so we'll move on to the comment section.
Thank you. At this part of our business meeting, we allow for public comment. If you choose to come and speak to us tonight, we ask that you can speak to any item on the agenda or any issue-oriented item. When you come to the podium, please state your name, address, and sign the register that's there at the podium. You're encouraged to keep your comments non-personal in nature, and they should be limited to 5 minutes. And I will also add, this is not a question-answer section, so we will not respond to any comments made. This is your time to make comments. If you want to talk with us, we'd be pleased to meet with you before the meeting, after the meeting, or days later. So any public comments, this is your time. Seeing none, Mr. City Manager.
All right, we'll move on. There's no appointments on tonight's agenda, so we'll move forward with the approval of minutes from the work session on May 19th, 2025, and the business meeting on May 20th, 2025. We'd ask that you approve these minutes as submitted, please.
You have the minutes of May 19th and May 20th. I'm sure you've read them, and if there are no adjustments or corrections, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Motion for approval by Alderman Mays, or second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Phillips. All in favor of the approving the motion minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No opposes. So motion passes 6-0. Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, we have 3 public hearings on the agenda tonight associated with the adoption of the fiscal 26 budget. We'll begin with consideration of the general fund budget for fiscal 26, and I will walk through that presentation now. So as we have discussed with you all, really going back since February, the budget process is a year-long process. We literally don't just focus on it during the months of April and May and June. This is something that dominates our discussion throughout the course of the year. We begin that in January, where we receive the department request. We bring that to you along with interest in your feedback and some of the priority areas we feel like you all want to see us go in the upcoming year. We do that in a day-long session in February. And then really every work session since then has been dedicated to our budget. In March and April, we go through the process of balancing the budget. Over the course of 2 days, the first or the second week of May, we bring this to you all for discussion, adjustments, input, and then ultimately we move towards finalizing that budget and bringing it to you all as we are tonight for first reading, with second reading coming up on the 17th. From there, we begin the implementation of the budget on July 1. We close out the previous years and we begin working on the annual comprehensive financial report, which we'll bring back to you all in December. As I stated at the beginning, this is a year-long process. This is not something that we do in isolation over just a few months, but rather one that is over 12 months. As we look through this budget, really, it's the priorities that you guys set and the strategic plan, which you adopted at your last meeting, that have really been the guiding principles behind a lot of the thought process that we have made in preparation of this budget. Capital items that we've looked at within this budget, as well as operational adjustments, all tying back into these 7 focus areas that are part of your strategic plan. You've seen this slide many times going back for the last several months, and it's a very good slide really to begin the conversation on the fiscal 26 budget. When you look at this graph here and you kind of look at where we find ourselves, or where we found ourselves going into fiscal 23, was in a very positive position. We were setting the city up with a tax increase at that time that allowed us to really move over the next 4 to 5 years in an area that we felt like would allow us to address capital, operating needs, and the ever-changing ground on employee pay and just wages in general. Unfortunately, in fiscal 24, the ratio appraisal was implemented, as it is every 2 years by the state, but this one caught everyone in the state off guard in the fact that it was really a significant drop. As real property increased, personal property needed to equalize, and for the city of Kingsport, who is an industrial city, we saw a significant loss in revenue, over $3.8 million, highest percentage in the state of Tennessee. And so that put us in a position that really set us back to revenues that were really on par with what we were seeing in fiscal 21. We all know what inflation has done. We've seen CPI, the impact that has had. So when you lose that amount of money and then try to grow out of it, it is very challenging. You couple that with sales tax that has plateaued, and so as you look over 23 and then kind of what we even project into 26, we have seen that sales tax revenue plateau, despite the things that we continue to do through the Economic Development Office to expand the tax base, and very much grateful for what was done at the state level to allow us to collect online sales tax. We've really seen those numbers plateau, and that obviously, coupled with the ratio appraisal, had an impact on our operations. This is a very good slide in the fact that it also captures a multitude of things that I have just discussed, but also it brings to light the fact just how tight the operating budget in 24 and 25 was as a result of those loss of dollars. The purple bar shows the inflow of revenue, the red bar shows the expenditures, and then the green line shows kind of what our cash on hand is. Continuing, really going back to 2015, carrying all the way through 2022, a tremendous emphasis on growing the amount of cash on hand, setting up a very healthy fund balance, something that was necessary to do. And so your revenues outpaced your expenditures. That allowed you to then either put money back in your fund balance or to set those dollars up for one-time capital expenditures. And many of you all who have been on the board will recall the fact that we would be making adjustments over the course of the summer so that we could set dollars aside for future capital investments. However, in 24 and 25, that was near impossible, as we really saw the budget really be tighter than probably what we've seen since the 07, 08, 09 timeframe. This was largely due to that loss of revenue, and then the reality that one-time dollars had to be thrown into the operating budget to allow us to continue moving forward. So what is before you tonight? Well, the recommended general fund budget is $110,874,600. It requires an increase in property tax revenue of approximately 9.8. When we began the budget process, we forecast about 1.4 million, which would be natural growth that would be occurring within the budget. The overwhelming majority, if not all of that, has been absorbed through various areas of the budget that we discussed back in February and again in May. When we look at our fleet expenses, they have increased, insurance has increased, other utilities within our operations have absorbed the overwhelming majority of that natural revenue growth. So what does this mean? In order to generate that money, there has to be a tax increase. So this is a reassessment year, so rates are going to be changing, and that has obviously been something that's been in discussion over the last couple of months all across Sullivan County, as well as the two primary cities. So our current tax rate is $1.99. That dates back to the 2021 assessment, the equalized rate then of $1.87, your 12 cents a few years back to take it to $1.99. Every indication from Sullivan County is that our equalized tax rate for fiscal 26 will be $1.34. While we do not have that rate just yet, we anticipate having that within the coming days, and that has been what we have used over the last several weeks with this new information to build our budget. So we see a new tax rate that we would set for Sullivan County, the Kingsport section of Sullivan County, to be $1.67. Again, setting the rate will be a future item for this board to consider. Right now, we are setting the revenues to match the expenditures that are being presented within this budget. So where will these additional dollars go? And I think it's important as we look at new revenue to follow the dollars to understand exactly what they will be doing. Well, going back all the way to fiscal 24, we have been having conversations with you all about the need to restore the revenue that was lost. That over $3.8 million took a significant hit to the city's operations. Basically, what we did in order to manage through that is we used reoccurring money that has historically been allocated towards paving to go into operations. Reoccurring dollars for reoccurring expenses. That's extremely important thing to keep in mind as we move through this. We used then one-time money, largely the significant amount of American Rescue Plan money that was given to cities all across the country to then go in to support our paving efforts. It was very important to the management of the city as well as to the leadership of the city that we continue on the paving program that we have established going back to 2017. The need to catch up is significant. Pausing that, losing ground, just was not something we were willing to consider. Unfortunately, those one-time dollars are not available. The ARPA money has been spent. We dipped into our fund balance last year, rainy day fund. That's what it's intended to do, but the ability to go back into the rainy day fund again is not recommended. So again, one of the first priorities is restore what we lost. Second priority is to maintain competitive pay for all employees. This has been something that we have talked about extensively over the last 5 years. One of the things that I have seen and every city manager in the state of Tennessee has seen is a tremendous amount of wage adjustment that has taken place. As the labor pool has shrunk, the demand for quality employees, the demand to retain the quality employees you have is at a level that it has not been in my nearly 28-year career with the city of Kingsport or in local government. And so we need to make adjustments in order to remain competitive. Again, our desire is to be competitive in all aspects of our operations. We are seeing that pressure placed upon us from decisions that have been made by local jurisdictions, some of which have made adjustments mid-year to their tax rate simply to direct more money towards pay. We're seeing that occur elsewhere outside the region as well. Why are we behind? Well, it's really simple when you look back at the loss of revenue, where we were going into fiscal 23, the realities of 24 and 25. Our competition, if you will, made adjustments. We were not able to because we did not have the dollars, and you see those tight budgets and you understand there was just not the flexibility to do anything. So we talked about paving, talked about employee pay, and then infrastructure. We are looking at capturing around $750,000 that will then allow us to leverage capital bonds. These are going into roads, intersections, school facilities, bridges. really the meat and potatoes, if you will, of our operations and what is expected of us from our citizens. So to kind of walk through these in a little bit more detail, this is the fiscal 26 sustainable paving plan. Again, something we are funding with cash. You see the expenses that are listed there. I'll show a map here in a second that will make some of these area notifications come into more realization. But $2.5 million towards resurfacing, also $750,000 towards addressing what we consider worst first. These are all over the city, not necessarily in one area, but areas that may have issues that we need to come back and get now instead of waiting till we move into that area. We have a lot of concrete panels, so those are very expensive, and we spend a lot of time and effort trying to restore those instead of paving over them. And then trying to protect our investments. Over $200,000 will go into pavement preservation, something that we're very proud of. We believe this is a great opportunity to extend the life of the road and be good stewards of these dollars. Not in fiscal 26, but on the horizon is the opportunity to leverage federal pass-through dollars that allow us to spend roughly 20% of the cost of the resurfacing for some of these large roads, such as Island Road, Clinchfield and Eastman, Meadowview Parkway, or Bank. So over the next 3 years, 3 fiscal years, we hope to get approval at the state and federal level through the process we go through to get those dollars. This is a map that we have shown to you for several years now. The first year we looked at this, there was a lot of red. It was a result of really a neglect into investments that the city had not made into paving. Thanks to the work that you all have done, the work that our staff has done, we've continued to make these investments, and we're slowly turning the condition of our streets all across the city. See the areas we've identified for the upcoming fiscal year, so into the Cooks Valley area, and then Area 14 as we move into fiscal 27. The roads identified in red are the ones I talked about that we're hoping to leverage the federal pass-through dollars through our MPO office over the next 3 fiscal years. I talked about infrastructure and the need to continue making critical investments there. You see this as the anticipated infrastructure that we will be focusing on over the course of the upcoming year. Intersection improvements at Jesse and Memorial. This will greatly aid Ross and Robinson Middle School. Jack White is one we've had on our radar for some time. The approaches at Netherland End Bridge, again, this is a maintenance item in many ways. Continuing work on bridges, so you see Eastman Road as well as Clinchfield. Watauga Street, a good portion of that is a rebuild as utilities there have reached end of life. Is it necessary to go in, redo that, and then rebuild the road back on top of it? And then providing some assistance to Kingsport City Schools. Both of these items are items that they probably would have taken out of their fund balance. However, due to a reduction in funds that they have seen through Sullivan County, we are now having to pick up these capital items. So a new chiller at Washington, and then also setting up for future growth needs with the new elementary school in the Lynn Garden community. These items will be part of a bond package we anticipate issuing in January of the upcoming fiscal year. And so we will quickly move, once these dollars are received, into the construction of them. Overview of the revenues. As you see here, the primary items we look at are property tax revenues as well as local option sales tax. Again, the property tax reflects the recommended increase, which we have been in discussion about for some time. And then you see local option sales tax. Again, somewhat plateaued. We're hopeful to see that number grow, but it's also, a reality of kind of where we are at the present time. Collectively, that generates the revenue that is tied to this budget for the upcoming year. When we look at the breakdown of our revenues, this pie chart reflects the revenue chart that I just showed you. Based upon the absence of diversity within our revenue, historically, Kingsport has put a lot of its revenue needs within property tax. And so when we are in the 50% range in terms of total revenue for operations, Historically, that has been where Kingsport has needed to be. Over the last few years, we saw that drop tremendously, about 6 to 7%. So within our budget, that obviously has an impact. And so getting that back up to that level, again, historically, as to how we are structured with fees and other items, this is where the bulk of our revenue comes from to support the services we provide. The distribution of those dollars back into the various general fund departments, so you see schools, public works, fire, police, they receive the overwhelming majority of the dollars that are generated through the general fund, and those are dispersed to support all aspects of general fund operations. We'll talk later about enterprise funds that are primarily our utilities. So what's not in this budget? And this is a slide that we've had a lot of conversation about over the last few months. Over $19 million in capital was removed from our proposed bond issuance. So you go back and look at those intersections, roads that made up that $9 million. We've taken a tremendous amount of dollars out of there. Looking at the operating budget, there's a lot of very worthy items that were unable to make it to the point of being recommended in this budget, largely because we knew we had to catch up from what we had lost. So while these are very worthy items that need to be considered, they were not able to make it into this budget. There's no new employees. We had 17 positions requested. We're not adding any new employees in this upcoming budget. The $1 million to offset the loss of funding from Sullivan County was an item that we had a lot of discussion about. At one point, we had that in the budget, but after discussions, we ultimately pulled that out, as well as the capital, to try to reduce the impact of funds. When you look at those new revenues that are coming in, again, it's a reset really to get us back from where we found ourselves in the beginning of fiscal '24. The reality is, though, as we move through this upcoming fiscal year, we are going to have to make a lot of changes in terms of operations. We're going to be holding positions. We're going to be evaluating the need to fill those positions. We're going to be looking at whether or not we need to make cuts or other service alterations. We're already making adjustments to how several departments within the general fund are structured in an attempt to reduce funding, or reduce expenditures, I should say. We think right now, estimated that could easily be $500,000. Quite honestly, I anticipate that it will more than likely grow as we move through this year, and I really hope to be able to identify much of that within the first quarter. So those savings really are going to be redeployed. So when I talk to you about a budget today, I'm really talking to you about a budget over the next couple of years. So the impact that we're able to make with the new revenue going into '26, we're going to need adjustments in '26 to help us with '27 moving forward. Not in the public hearing conversation tonight, but obviously part of the fiscal '26 budget is the Regional Sales Tax Fund. We've had a lot of conversations on that over the course of the last 2 years. That is a fund that supports Meadowview, Cattails, and the Aquatic Center. Right now, that is a fund that is got a tremendous amount of pressure on it. And we recognize over the next 2 years, that is going to be an item that we will be having a lot of conversation about as we see a need to adjust the existing agreements that exist with the owners as well as the operators for Meadowview, but also to make sure that we're continuing to make the necessary investments to make all of those facilities viable for the attraction and the recruitment of tourism within the city, as well as just the service they provide on a local level. I've said to you all numerous times over the last several months, this is arguably one of the more difficult budgets that I have been presented. I've had to present to you all. When I look at really where we've been over the last several years, as a result of that loss of funding, it has been extremely challenging. We've been thankful that we had the one-time money. We've been very thankful that we have historically been very good stewards and taken a very conservative approach to our budgeting. But the reality is, in order to advance forward over the next several years, in order to make the necessary investments into people, necessary investments into infrastructure, not only in large capital, but in the annual paving that we are doing, It was necessary for us to bring you all a budget that included a tax increase. We realize, just as you all do, that this is a very difficult decision. No one ever wants to be staring at a budget that has a tax increase associated with it. It has always been my goal. I've always been trained to exhaust all available opportunities. Prior to coming in here, we feel like we have done that with the position we're in right now. I realize, as I stated just a minute ago, as we go into 26, there will be a need for additional adjustments. We'll do that collectively, and we'll be bringing those to you for more discussion. With that, Mayor, that concludes this public hearing. Turn the meeting back over to you.
At this point in time, we will conduct a public hearing, and I will gavel it into opening. And if anyone wants to come and speak on the budget issue that's before us, this is your time to do so. If you do, come to the podium, sign your name, address, and that sort of thing. Again, don't expect us to respond to your comments. This is your time to speak to us, and we will listen.
I'll go ahead and do the address part here on the roster.
As you're writing, I will remind you, the gentleman on the end is the timekeeper, so that's the one you need to keep an eye on.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Your name, sir?
My name is Jay Schlegg. My address, I live at 1009 Tip Top Avenue up in here in Kingsport in the Lynn Garden community. I'm not going to say what I thought I was going to say coming here tonight because of interaction with you all, and I thank you very much for that. Giving me information that I needed, being concerned about the proposed tax increase with the budget and everything. Right now, I want to say thank you for everyone who has been gracious in giving information on this. I really appreciate the detailed presentation of the budget, showing the shortcomings and all that. One thing I will ask in general, please keep in mind, there are many of us out here who, if we have to deal with a property tax increase, may not be able to deal with it. And I'll find a way. I know other people won't be able to. It would really suck. It would be very troubling to see, especially a lot of our elderly people on fixed incomes worrying about losing their homes. The products of their liberty and their hard work and their choices because of taxation increase. I realize this is not all on you. I greatly appreciate that. I thank you for allowing me the time to make these comments. I just ask you to please keep those individuals in mind as we move forward in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the budget, 25-26 budget? Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance of the City of Kingsport, Tennessee, adopting a final budget and appropriating funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
You've heard a reading of the budget ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Mays. Okay, discussion, comments.
Mayor, I'm going to be voting no on the city's budget tonight, and I'd like to take just a few minutes and lay out the reasons why.
Sure.
From the very beginning of my term, I've shared with the city manager that if a tax increase is ultimately necessary, we should first demonstrate to the citizens that we've done everything possible to find savings within the existing budget. I believe that would show the people of Kingsport that we're willing to meet them part of the way. City manager has acknowledged tonight that in the next year, he anticipates identifying at least $500,000 or more in savings. And I would hope with over $11 million in new recurring revenue, we can find that and then more some. I believe we should have started the process I believe we should have started that process before placing this large of a tax increase on our citizens. That's been my perspective since the day I took office. I fully realize and recognize the impact of inflation and wage pressures on local governments, but our citizens and businesses are being impacted and they're making adjustments in their own lives. And I believe that local government should lead by example and do the same. When I ran for this office, I said that I remember a time in Kingsport when our roads were the best in the region, our police and fire were the best paid and best equipped, and our schools were the best in the state. And I believe those are still hallmarks and differentiators that should set Kingsport apart, and I believe we should fight to reclaim that standard. But with a 33-cent property tax increase, not a single penny is going to the Kingsport City School System's operations. I believe Kingsport has a duty to make sure our schools are at the level required to make them a competitive strength. So my vote no is not a vote against pay, not a vote against pay for public safety or for city staff or for paving. My vote is not a vote being anti-progress or anti-tax. I believe my vote no is about responsible government. Kingsport has a large population of residents on fixed incomes. Nearly a quarter of our citizens are over age 60. We also know that 1 in 3 of our children in the community live in poverty. For these families, I believe even a modest tax increase can mean hard choices. If we've already acknowledged that changes are needed, as the city manager has noted with the internal cuts and operating restructuring, then I think we should work to start that process this year, not next. My vote is not about halting progress. It's about budgeting with discipline, fairness, and a deep respect for the people that we serve. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me that opportunity.
Okay, other comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I do want to make a comment. You know, this has been a really hard budget. I know it's been a really hard budget for our leadership team and our city manager. And I am going to vote for the budget, but I feel that we've asked the city manager to make a lot of cuts. I really strongly believe in pay. I know we've got to keep paving, and I know the city manager is looking at each different thing. But I think it's also the responsibility of this board. And a lot of the cuts that were not made, that I have been one that have spoken on a lot, and I know I get the kickback and from the people that this does hurt. But a lot of the cuts that the city manager would like to make or is really his hands are tied because they come from what we allow to happen. We are the ones that vote for the partnerships. We are the ones that fund the nonprofits. We are the ones that support our own pet projects and friends and different partnerships that the city has. There's a lot of funds when he talks about cutting $500,000 from services. We have more than that in partnerships that I think we need to look at as a board, and it's very hard decisions. A lot of these partnerships have our friends in them, but when you're talking about spending the taxpayer money, I have always felt that it is not our responsibility to take tax money from the citizens and decide which nonprofit they fund. And a lot of the partnerships that we have done with the county has cut, my understanding from our last meeting we had with them, they chose to stop funding all their nonprofits, which a lot of those go to the city, things like Bays Mountain. And as a board, we have pushed for partnerships to fund the region. So a lot of the things we fund support with Kingsport tax money, support Sullivan County and this whole region as a whole. And I think as a taxpayer of Kingsport is who I'm voting for, I really want this board to look at what can be cut, that we have to tell the city manager and as a board be a majority, because without the majority, those things don't get cut. And I applaud Chris for city manager for what he is proposing, but we have a responsibility as a board member here to look at our citizens and say that the things that we choose, the partnerships that we fund are in the best interest of Kingsport taxpayers. I am for pay, I'm for paving, I'm for the benefits that I feel our city receives, our citizens, but I think there's hard choices, and I will vote for it tonight, but I hope everybody thinks about what they can tell the city manager and allow him to move forward on making some cuts that are held up by us instead of we've tied his hands. And so said, I will vote because I do believe this is a good budget, and I think we're the problem in some places, and I take responsibility for that. We need to look hard and make hard decisions as well to allow the city manager to.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mayor. You know, this tax increase has not been taken lightly for sure. I mean, it's one of these things you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it at 3 a.m. The city manager said follow the dollars. I guess I kind of followed the cents. And so out of 33 cents, 15 cents of that goes into our paving program. And 14 cents of that is will go into our employee pay. And that leaves 4 cents for operational funds. You know, it's like the city manager said, we've taken quite a hit through this, not only the state, but through our county as well. And plus with the increased pressure on inflation that we've had, it's a tough budget. And, you know, when you know, I've been on the board for a while along with Colette, and I don't think and James, and we haven't experienced anything exactly quite like this with the pressures that we receive. So, you know, I think that these are essential needs to our city. Can we make more cuts along the way? As Alderman George said, I think that's something that we always need to look at. But I will be voting yes for this, just for those reasons.
Okay. Other comments?
I'll add, I don't have much to add, but I'll just add, you know, the point I was making during one of our many meetings over this budget is, you know, for no fault of our own, we've had almost $10 million taken out of our budget in the last 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And, you know, our city manager has done an outstanding job of being able to piece this thing together over the last 3 years. But eventually, it's come to a head. I mean, you know, we can't keep going down this path of having $3.8 million taken out here, you know, another $1 million here. And a whole nother argument is our schools are having the same issue, with money being taken from the county. And so, you know, we've got to look at that and what we can do to help. And, you know, but on this budget tonight, it's just, you know, 3 years of this much money being taken out is just, I think, has put us in this position where we don't have a choice. You know, as everybody said, nobody wants a tax increase, but realistically, in 10 years, we've had one tax increase, and 100% of that tax increase went to pay. So we haven't had a tax increase in 10 years to cover the rising cost of everything that the city is doing. So it's just not realistic to think that you could go 10, 20, 30 years without a tax increase. This is one of those situations I feel like where we need to, you know, we're setting ourselves back up on a level playing field, and hopefully with the savings that we're looking to pull out of the budget going into next year. And I definitely agree with what Alderman George is saying about some of the things we need to look into that we're giving money. I think that we'll be in a good spot going forward. So I'll be a yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate my colleagues, my friends here tonight on the board, sharing their comments. And I also appreciate Mr. Slag and his comments as well. And
So I am going to vote yes for this, but I look at what our budget does, and I think James makes a great point. I was going to make the same point. The city has lost close to $10 million for various reasons. And that's a significant reduction in revenue. But look at what the budget does. It does help our schools in terms of some capital items that they could not afford to do because of their loss, $3.8 million loss in revenue. It also maintains our street paving, and we've all heard through our community engagement, we've all heard comments from citizens and complimentary comments and also concerns about street paving. So I think we maintain the integrity of street paving. And of course, we all know anyone that owns a business in Kingsport knows that wages is a high-pressure situation, and the city is no different. I think we have to maintain our pay, and we're not talking about pay in the South. We're only talking about a regional competitive pay is what this pay scale does, and it helps us maintain the integrity of the city through our public works staff, which is outstanding, and our police and fire, of course, are outstanding. So if we didn't have this 34-cent tax increase, we would be having very difficult decisions about our personnel, about schools, and various other street projects other than paving or bridges. So no question, it's a very distasteful issue to vote for a tax increase. Don't disagree with Alderman Baker's sentiments as well, but I will vote yes for this budget. And I too appreciate the city manager's work. But I think the city manager has gotten a clear directive from this board over the last few months that, yes, we may approve a budget, but we start working on the budget next year immediately, and it will be a difficult road ahead in terms of cuts and looking at ways to be more efficient. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate each of you as you make very good comments. And Alderman George is correct. We sit on a lot of committees as board members, and if the cuts need to come, we need to make those cuts from where we sit on those committees, and that way the city manager don't have those coming to him. So I would suggest as we proceed going forth, if we see things that we think need to be streamlined, that we make those cuts at the source. That way they don't actually come to us as a board for us to make those decisions, because we are sitting on several committees, organizations throughout the city where we have influence. So I would encourage us all to use our power there. But we probably do need to look at everything, as you said. I appreciate your boldness in saying that we need to do that. So I'm sure that the city manager will do that going forth, consider all the things we've talked about. Now, we are not an anomaly as a city, because there's a city not too far from here tonight going over their budget, and they're looking at 50 cents tax rate. And so they're city after city throughout the state of Tennessee, for sure, inflation has hit us all hard. So we all are looking at the same, we all have the same plate, and we don't like what we have as a plate, but it is what we have to do sometimes. In times like these, we have to make difficult decisions to advance our city forward. I, too, will be, like I said last meeting, that I'll be supporting this budget. So, therefore, any other comments or discussions before I call for the vote? Okay. You have the resolution before you, the ordinance to adopt FY 25-26 budget. All in favor of the motion to approve the budget, say aye. Aye. And opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
All right, Mayor, the next public hearing you have is for the water utility. And Ryan McReynolds, our deputy city manager, will deliver the presentation ahead of the public hearing.
All right, appreciate it. We'll do the water utility, and then in front of the sewer, we'll do the sewer. To date, you all have been seeing these kind of together. And this is the presentation, the kind of the intro slide to the presentation you all have heard multiple times so far has been, if you've been preparing for the budget. I will not go through all of those items, but just to remind everybody the path you all have gone down, considering everything to get to the point where we're bringing rate recommendation before you. Starts with the pressures on the city, and really the revenue risk. What we're talking about is where we found ourselves and the plan we put in place 4 years ago. The great thing is in the transition of the plan, this is the last year of transition. Next year, we're at the point that the board had been looking for the past 4 years, where we have a base rate and a consumption rate. Much easier for the customer to understand, and really probably the standard, the gold standard. It's very transparent and easy to explain. This year, we still have a little bit lingering effects we'll go over in the rates of the old rate structure. So that was something that was very positive the board did 4 years ago, was move us down the road. And the second thing was establish a framework to really deal with the revenue risk. More than likely next year when I come to you in presentations, the revenue risk is going to be removed as a pressure. The plan that we have placed in, that you all have put in place, has really removed. It just builds toward the regulatory risk, what is before us, what are we being asked to do, and aging infrastructure, kind of our main drivers now for where our rates are going. You all have set a framework well that deals with the revenue risk. So coming forward in the next few years, I'll probably remove that as a pressure. But all of that moves us to what are called master plans, plans that we put in place for our physical structure and then for our operations, that then move to CIPs, that then move to the financial plans and our rate structure we're presenting to you tonight. One slide that Travis helped me with to present really the story in this slide, looking at 2024 water cash flow and where the expenditures go to, is what I have circled. So the rates we receive from our customers flow back out in expenses, and 17% of that is personnel. So another way to look at that is 83%, did I do that math? Yeah, 83% is related to capital and operating, so power, chemicals, and then the work you see replacing the water lines, the work we have at the water plant. So it just goes to show that these entities, and another item that the board's well aware of, but just for everyone that's listening's perspective, these funds are self-sufficient. They don't blend with the property tax, what you all just went, the general fund. These funds stand alone on their rates. They are run like businesses. So everything that we have in the ground, we have to pay for out of the rates. The importance of this slide is just to show that when we receive these rates and this rate structure that we're proposing, 83% of it's going back into the capital that is supporting that. 17% you still have to run it. So 17% goes toward running the plans we have. So as the board went through the different budget preparation times, a lot of slides brought us to this point. So all the master plans, all the CIPs, all the discussions of operations brought us to what are the proposed rates for next year. And one thing that I want to mention, and I don't know if and I've tried to highlight these, is if you look at 2025 in the column at the very bottom, that's the clunkiness of the old rate structure going away. There was 500 gallons included in the base rate. It is going away to where next year you pay for a base rate that's up at the top. The majority of our residents have 5/8 inch meters. That's why I have it circled. So to have water at your house, you will pay $10.72 a month. That is the base rate. And then after that, we are not going up in the consumption. So we're holding the rate at $2.87 per thousand consumed. From that point forward, we will always be adjusting. So 27, 28, 29 is not what the board is voting on. They're only voting on 26 rate structure. We show that in our financial plans to project forward, given our capital needs, what are we going to need in 27, 28, 29. But, so water, what we're looking at is that structural $2.51 increase. That's a $2.51 increase across the board. The rates themselves do not change. And so we have two different customer classes in both water and sewer. We have our inside city customers and our outside city customers. And the thought here is this is more like a utility district. The density of customers is much less than the inside city, so our assets to serve per customer are much more. So our base rates are about double because we have that much pipe to serve much fewer customers. So we do have an inside city rate, which I showed you, and then the outside, again, very similar. The consumption is not going up, but the base rate is, and the 500 is going away. So those are the proposed rate structures. And to just give you all some comparisons, as we've been doing this the past few months with you, we like to show you the comparisons that Raftelis has presented us, and then we also show you some that we have been looking at through the life of over the past 30 years. We've been comparing rates with another group as well. So on the water side, our new rate structure, if it was approved, the average customer, and now it's at 3,000 gallons a month, is at $19.34. So the average in this class is at $27. So that's still a fairly a good rate on the water. As you all know, the sewer side is much more expensive in Kingsport. So we still feel like that is a very, very good rate on the water side. And if you do add the two together, and I'll go over the sewer next, we are just below the average with the two being added together. For the average customer's bill, about $62.42. And then if you look at it, at this one, we've always been comparing instead of 3,000 gallons. We started this years before they began implementing a lot of the efficiencies, and we looked at 3,600 gallons, and you can see where Kingsport kind of lines up in the middle of all of the various Tennessee utilities as well. So as I mentioned, we'll discuss the wastewater side in a minute, but I'm happy to answer any questions related to the drinking water side.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to open this public hearing up at this point in time. Is anyone here to speak on the water budget for 25-26? Seeing no one moved, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Attorney, please publish, and Ryan, you want to stay back closely if you have any questions. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance of the City of Kingsport, Tennessee, adopting a final water budget and appropriating funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
You've heard reading of the ordinance to adopt the 25-26 water budget. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Make a motion. So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman Phillips. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Duncan. Okay, now, any discussion from the board? Comments?
I've got two questions for Ryan. When you say revenue risk will be removed next year, what does that mean?
So that has been a part of my presentation over the past, say, 5-6 years. And it was built off of when we got invited into the comptroller's office because we had 2 years. We actually came out with 3 years, but it really started with 2 years of negative net position growth on the sanitary sewer side. So at that point, we are flagged as being in revenue risk. It could be called different things. That's just what I termed it in the presentation. What the comptroller is trying to tell the board and us is you are not receiving the revenue required to operate your utility. And so they invited us in, and at that point is when we engaged Raftellus to look at our financial situation, but also at our rate structure, and to give recommendations to the board of how to correct that. The presentations that we've done to the board over the past 2 or 3 months, we've gotten a lot deeper into there's about 4 or 5 financial indicators targets that we're trying to hit. On the water side, one that we're striving to is called cash funded capital, and its intent would be very much like repaving. It would be to replace the water lines that are continually breaking. We have seen a significant uptick in water breaks. So you're using the cash that comes in every year because you have to replace. We estimate we need to be at 9 miles of water line a year replacing to be able to keep up with a standard. Now, Alderman Phillips mentioned, we're putting back much better lines than once were installed. So hopefully when we get through quite a bit of that, we will see longer life out of the new lines than we did out of the older lines. But we're still at the point where we have a significant amount of water breaks, significant amount of what's called galvanized water lines in our system that we need to start raising that cash for capital on the water side.
So revenue risk removed, does that mean the comptroller, we're back in good standing?
Yes, sir. We,
With revenue risk being removed, is that what that means?
That's yes. I guess what I tried to say is the work the board did with Raftellis's guidance has given us the framework where I don't see revenue risk as being a pressure anymore upon us, because we have set the framework, we have set the system up. It was at one time. Now, the comptroller definitely feels we're in good standing.
This is a fee for service, and it's my understanding, I appreciate Travis sat with me one day and kind of walked through this. We've kept up with the rate increases, basically cost of living, is what the rate increases. That's not been the reason why, but that's been essentially what has taken place. So the other thing, can you go back to the comparison between the cities? If a citizen asks why our bill is so much more than Johnson City's, what would be the response to tell them?
So let me go to the water side. You're almost the same. The sewer side, a lot of the bill in both the two and then Bristol as well is going to go down to capital investments. And there was a tremendous uptick. You've talked about just keeping up with inflation. But the construction environment for the larger items within the wastewater water plant work have gone up even faster. And we have done more of that plant work more recently, and then the large line work. I think some of the aldermen remember when we replaced an interceptor from the plant under the railroad to Lovedale. Very expensive project. Johnson City has begun some of that, but as I speak with them on the horizon, not too far in the distant future, they've got some very heavy lifts related to their wastewater system. At that point, you will see a closing of the gap. I can't speak for them on that, but there has to be a payment for that much higher capital that is occurring today than was occurring 15, 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago.
So if a citizen asks us, basically, we're investing in capital to make sure that our lines are staying up. That's the reason our bill is higher.
Yes, and I do think the other systems will catch up. There's no way they can dodge the investment in capital. It will catch you. And I know Johnson City's already proactively looking forward to that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, I think Alderman Baker asked a good question. That's a question that we get asked a lot. So I guess to bring out elaborate more on your point, how many lift stations do we operate?
So main lift stations, we have a slew of what are called residential. But mainly, we have over 100 sewer lift stations.
Okay, so I do recall back in my, long time ago when I was previously on the board, this water sewer issue is capital intensive. And I remember the days of Old Faithful, and I remember the days of bridge closing. Of course, I know we're not talking about bridges, but I also remember the days of multiple water line breaks. Turbidity was an issue in the water. So if you don't maintain pacing in your capital of water and sewer, you will jam everything up at one time in your capital expenditures, which sounds like could be an issue for some other folks, but we've been there as a city, and it's not a good place to be.
Now, if you don't mind, if I can expand a little bit, because you piqued my thoughts. In that time frame from 94 to 04, we also were invited into 2 commissioners' orders that TDEC, and at that point you lose a lot of control, so that spurred a lot of our capital investment earlier maybe than others. I don't know if you recall any of those. They might have been after your time, the second one. But at that point, we were required to do quite a bit of capital on the sewer side as well. And that's one thing we're always trying to mitigate, is to ensure that we're not on their watch list, that we own our destiny related to the expenditures.
Other comments, questions? Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve, or whatever, the ordinance to adopt the water budget for 25-26. All those in favor of adopting the budget say aye. Aye. And opposed say nay. Ordinance passes 6-0. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, the next item is to conduct a public hearing for the fiscal 26 wastewater budget. Ryan?
All right. And we've had some conversation with this. It's the same framework as the last presentation. Again, the reason I have this slide up here is really to inform those watching, but to remind you all, y'all spent a lot of time going through these past few months. And again, like I said, this is the kickoff to the whole presentation you all have had to deal with. The end, all the master plans, all the CIP, all end up with a rate you all have to consider. So that's the end, the ask we're bringing to you tonight. It's interesting, even on the sewer side, the same cash flow, which shows the expenditures, is 17% on personnel. So 83% is either capital or the operating side of the shop, the power, the electricity, the various things just to keep 900 miles of water line, and I think about 400 miles of sewer line, 100 pump stations, all of that running. And someone has to do it, so that's the 17% of the personnel. So jumping right to the rate structure, and this looks a little odd, and I should have mentioned it the last time. I really wanted to create a consistency with the presentations you all had seen. So I just highlighted out the water to show you the wastewater, basically to show you that you've not seen anything you haven't seen in the past presentations over the last few months. On the wastewater, again, it's the clunkiness of moving from the last year transition to the first year of a clean rate. It's kind of odd. What you have is a $3.74 impact plus a 2.3% increase. That's probably the best way to say it. And so all customers would see a $3.74 city customers increase, and then the rate itself went up 2.3%. So on the sewer side, outside the city, there are a handful, not many, sanitary sewer customers outside the city, and they would have a similar $5.60 increase with, again, that 2.3% as well. From next year onward, all we're going to be talking about is percentages. This just happens to be how we have had to deal with the what we call 500 free. It's really included in the bill. Nothing is free. They paid for it. It's just included in the bill, getting that off the bill. Again, walking through the rate comparisons. So I have the sewer by itself, and you can see that on the water side, we're much further to the left. On the sewer side, we're right there at the average. As we've already spoke about, I guess some of the reasons for the sewer being larger. So when people talk about their water bill, they're really talking about the utility bill, water, wastewater, and the stormwater. And sometimes they even throw sanitation in there as a utility bill. But as I mentioned, our anticipation for the average customer would be $62.42. And that's a 3,000 gallon consumer. Again, same slide you saw last time. And I will wait until you all get it on the floor to answer any questions.
Thank you. It'll open up again this, for public hearing on the ordinance for the sewer budget. Anyone wanting to speak on the sewer budget? Seeing no one move, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance of the City of Kingsport, Tennessee, adopting a final sewer budget and appropriating funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, you've heard reading of the ordinance to adopt the sewer budget for 25-26. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Mays. Any discussion now?
I just want to comment on these two. I think what the citizens need to understand about these two is it basically is what it is. I mean, where we were in a position a few years ago that we weren't even charging enough, and that's what got us in trouble with the comptroller office. I mean, you have to make these pay for themselves, and that, basically the state tells you what you, I mean, our rates are set so that we're okay, and other than that, I mean, we do just enough to keep ourselves out of trouble, basically. So, I mean, it's not like you can't go lower, because then we get in trouble again, so it is what it is.
We was covering it out of our general fund at one time, some to make up a difference, right?
Actually, I don't think I don't think we're allowed to do that. We were actually eating into our fund balance.
Okay,
So that's how, the sewers fund balance was making up, and it was getting low.
It was coming out of that fund balance.
Yeah,
but
yes,
we
sir.
was having
Yes,
to-
sir.
Ryan, I get asked, probably as much about sewer, is why is my sewer nearly double what my water is? What would be the response to give a citizen that asks that question?
It's a very capitally intense program. So if you even just consider the construction of a water line, foot or two off edge of roadway, 2.5, 3 foot deep, it's a much easier construction and maintenance. Sewer lines travel the natural course downhill, and I mean, an average depth sewer line might be 7, 10 foot deep. And you're in areas that are not accessible, you're in the backyards. The amount of issues we have on the sewer side related to our permit are much higher than the water side. We deliver clean drinking water. You can turn that water on, and we meet every standard. You can mix it with baby formula and feel confident. I don't mean that it's a easier lift to do that, but it is a lot less effort than fully meeting your permit on the sewer side. So we have, if you put a line 7, 8 foot underground near a creek, the creek's going to get in the line. Sometimes the line gets in the creek, and that's a problem. So the system itself, the whole operation, is just a much more expensive operation than the water side.
Does the terrain of Kingsport play into that. I've had some ask
Yeah.
because we have a hilly terrain. I know when I ran, every house is on a hill.
Yeah, every house is, you're correct. I'll just.
Is that one
Yes,
of the
sir.
reasons?
If you're in an area that is gradually sloping to a river that then comes to the sewer plant, and you're not having to do all these pump stations. But by the time you flush a commode at Cracker Barrel to the time it hits our plant, I bet you've gone through 7, 8 pump stations. And every time you're doing that, you're putting not only electricity and power and maintenance on each pump station, but the capital of each pump station, because you're going to be rebuilding that pump station.
How many pump stations do we have?
Over 100. And we do try and have those on a replacement. We're trying to do about 3, 4 a year. Some of those are so large that we did the Ridgefield Road at Netherland Inn as a $9-10 million project. But we can replace some of those pump stations in the $300,000 to $500,000 range. But yes, our terrain, that's a great point. Our terrain plays into the cost of the wastewater as well as the water. We've got, I think, 11 pressure zones. 14. Chad grew 3 on me. 14 pressure zones. You get into flat areas and you pump it once and you can serve everybody. And so not only are we pumping it, same type of concept, but we have areas that have very high pressure that then tend to tax our lines as well. So yeah, we're in an interesting area to run a utility. Now, the flip side of it is we are very much blessed to be in this high end of the drainage, the river basins. We've got really nice, high quality raw water. I mean, our rivers are in great shape to be able to pull it out and treat it. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So with your terrain, you're dealing with a lot of rock.
Lot of
Because there
rock.
are houses in Kingsport that they cannot do sewer to, because we find those in real estate that they're actually have to be on septic because of the rock that they can't get to.
You know, it's like Alderman Phillips said, I mean, it's a business, you've got to operate it in that sense. And I think when folks, they talk to me, I said, it's point to point mission. I mean, I think we need to make sure that we're staying in compliance with the comptroller, and, you know, Travis talked about getting to the point where we can start paying cash for some of the capital, rather than bonding, which is a better business sense when we get to that point in time, so, yeah.
Yes,
It's
sir.
just hard to explain to citizens sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Other comments, questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the ordinance for the 25-26 sewer budget. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ordinance passes 6-0. City Manager.
All right, that concludes the 3 public hearings. We'll move on with some additional items related to the fiscal 26 budget. Next is consideration of an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 25-26 Metropolitan Planning Project Grant Fund budget. As I outlined the general fund budget, we talked about the funding that comes in from a capital standpoint. In addition to capital dollars that come in, we also receive planning dollars that allow staff on within the city of Kingsport to do planning, transportation planning on a regional level. So we extend in Southwest Virginia, Hawkins County, Sullivan County outside the city of Kingsport to do transportation planning. This is a federally funded program. We receive the funds for the upcoming fiscal year at $463,096. Mayor would ask that you approve this ordinance on first reading, establishing the MPO budget for fiscal 26.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to appropriate metropolitan transportation planning and grant project funds and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
You've heard a reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Mays. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. And opposed, say nay. The ordinance passes 6-0. City Manager.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 25-26 Community Development Block Grant Fund budget. This is an item that comes to us from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Proposed funding for the upcoming fiscal year is $450,726. As you all know, through the community development funds, this has been one we've had a lot of conversation about as of late due to activity within DC regarding a host of federal funding cuts. As of right now, this is the budget that is projected to be awarded to the city of Kingsport for the upcoming year. Not only does this fund a staff person to manage community development, it also funds some staff that assist with code enforcement, and then it also provides funding for many qualifying agencies that then turn around and provide funding back, or services, I should say, back within our community. Mayor, with that, we'd ask that you approve the ordinance establishing the Community Development Block Grant Budget for fiscal '26.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to appropriate U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant funds for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2026, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
You've heard the reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman Baker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Phillips. Any discussion?
Chris, do we know that's the exact dollars we're gonna get, or is that still to be determined?
This is the dollar amount that they've given us
Okay, it could change though,
as a possibility,
yeah.
as it sure does.
A lot of good work takes place with these funds too.
I agree.
Yep.
Housing repairs and, a lot of good stuff.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay, all in favor of the ordinance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ordinance passes 6-0. Mr. City Manager.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 25-26 School Public Law 93-380 Grant Project Fund Budget. The majority of the funding for Kingsport City Schools is within the general fund. However, this is federal funds that are passed through to the city of Kingsport for educational purposes. You see the grant for the upcoming fiscal year is slated at just over $6 million. In fact, $6,028,161. This is part of the school, Kingsport City Schools total budget. We'd ask that you approve this ordinance for the School Public Law Fund for fiscal '26.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to establish PL 93-380 Grant Project Fund for the PL 93-380 grant, to appropriate such funds and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman Phillips. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Baker. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the ordinance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ordinance passes 6-0. City Manager.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 25-26 Schools Special Projects Grant Fund Budget. Again, part of the overall budget for Kingsport City Schools for fiscal '26. The amount of $1,133,720 is what is being awarded as part of this grant for the upcoming year. Mayor, we'd ask that you approve this ordinance establishing the budget for the school special project fund.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to establish Special School Grant Project Fund 145 for Special School Projects Grant, to appropriate such funds and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Phillips. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of ordinance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ordinance passes 6-0. The City Manager.
All right, Mayor, that completes the items on first reading for the fiscal '26 budget. Now I'll shift our attention to the rest of the agenda. The first item is consideration of a budget ordinance for various funds in fiscal '25. So this has to do with the current budget year that we are under. As we discussed last night, the primary things associated with this.
Mr. City Manager, we missed one.
Number 8.
Number 8.
9-8.
Number 8.
8.
That's what I'm on, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're in this, you said we moved to the next section, and we're still in the same section.
No, I'm sorry. We didn't move to the next section. We just completed the items for the budget for fiscal '26. We're still in the same section.
Listen, man, I just go by what's on the paper. I'm confused, okay?
Yeah, I know. I'll try to simplify it. All right. I'm just glad you're paying attention at this point, all right? All right, so as we discussed last night, this is for the budget year that we are currently in. The primary things that we are addressing here is establishing the revenue necessary for us to move forward with the debt service payment for Pet Works. As we discussed earlier in the year, this fiscal year, we made adjustments to the outstanding balance that is still owed. Tremendous amount was paid through donations. A little over $1 million remains. That's been restructured through a loan. We are moving forward with the payment of that debt service for this year. We've asked that Pet Works be in a position next year to provide some assistance on this due to some donations that they've received. And in the process of moving forward with, they anticipate that ability to be able to. We've also discussed, as was brought up last night, being able to protect our interest in that, placing a lien or having additional ownership of that property as we appear to be slated to pay the remaining amount of that debt. In addition to that, the other item on here is to set up the necessary funds, which would be on an as-needed basis for the regional effort for a new airline coming into Tri-Cities Airport. As we discussed over the last several months, we saw the economic impact that would bring for Kingsport, the business sector, tourism sector, also from the livability standpoint. So we have joined the region in their effort to secure the $2 million that was required. Again, as I stated last night, I've reached out to John Rose with the bridge, who's heading this. He has an update scheduled for this week, so I'll be sharing that with you all. But it is the belief that the necessary funds have been secured, which was a critical step in this whole process. They would be moving forward with the announcement, the timing of that new airline moving forward. So that, Mayor, be happy to answer any questions, but would ask that the board approve this budget ordinance on first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to amend various fund budgets for the year ending June 30, 2025, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman George. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Baker. Any discussion?
On the $250,000 incentive, since the announcement has not been made, and with the timing of the whole event, what chance of that money actually being used in this fiscal year?
Will not be. Yeah, it'll be in next fiscal year.
I mean, will it even be in?
No.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I was already past, because you moved us on, but you
Yes.
moved us back. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
realistically, we're going to be setting this aside into an interest-bearing account, I mean, holding it. and-
Correct.
And it will not be used for the next 12 months?
It'll depend on the timing of the announcement and when the airline will begin service. I feel fairly confident in saying that will be in fiscal '26, but the exact date, I do not know at this point.
Has a formula been agreed upon between all the regional parties on how each individual party will be participating as it moves forward? So there's, obviously, our 250,000 isn't the first drawn, and it'll be a percentage of, based on.
So that is still being developed, as we believe there's not only local dollars, there's private dollars, and there's even potential of state dollars here. I don't know that. I'm just making these assumptions. And I know conversations with the other city managers in the region have contributed to this, that once we have a timeline and we begin to understand what the draws will look like, that will be established.
You and the mayor and/or the mayor are at the table.
Yes.
For those negotiations?
Yes.
Okay, I'm good then.
Chris, have they said that it's gonna be a monthly, they're gonna invoice monthly, is it gonna be quarterly? Has that been determined?
It has, to my understanding, and I think every airline is different. So some will look at a quarter, some will look at a year. This one, it's my understanding, is month to month in terms of what they're seeing positive revenue, they don't require it, then it's not a need. If they're seeing negative, then it needs to be adjusted at that point.
And we're gonna retain those funds, we're not gonna give them to another organization.
So we're having conversations with First Tennessee Development District, who historically has held dollars for the region. And as we get closer, we'll have a better idea, but we don't want to release those, and kind of to Alderman George's point, we'll keep that, gain what interest we can until we have to submit that.
Thanks.
Not on the airport, or the airline money, but on Pet Works there. Just, that would be one that I would just ask that as we go throughout this year, we really, as you're looking at ways we can streamline and figure things out, we really need to take a big look at Pet Works. I don't think people understand how the whole Pet Works thing went down. We had an agreed upon, to Alderman George's point from much earlier in the meeting, we had an agreed upon deal with our friends, county, and then at the finish line, the rug got pulled out from under us. So we've been going alone at this, and I think that there needs to be some decisions made on what's gonna happen with Pet Works going forward.
Agree, and, you go back to last week's city-county meeting sponsored by the chamber. One of the points that the mayor made is it's an opportunity as we move into next year to look at revisiting this partnership all across the county, not just on the western end of the county.
We're still happy to partner.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, all in favor of the budget ordinance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Budget ordinance passes 6-0. City manager.
All right, we're now moving into section 10, business matters requiring final adoption. First item for second reading is consideration of an ordinance to amend the fiscal 25 general purpose school fund and general projects fund budget. Again, this is an item that comes to us from the Board of Education. It's on your agenda for second and final reading. We'd ask that you approve the ordinance, please.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to amend the general purpose school fund budget and the general project school fund budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Baker. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Recorder, please call the roll for the vote, please.
Alderman Baker. Aye. Vice Mayor Duncan.
Aye.
Alderman George.
Aye.
Alderman Mays.
Aye.
Alderman Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Montgomery.
Aye. The ordinance passes 6-0. Ms. City Manager.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to amend the fiscal 25 school nutrition services fund budget. Again, this item comes to us from the Board of Education. We'd ask that you approve it on second and final reading, please.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
An ordinance to amend the school nutrition services fund budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025, and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
You've heard the reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman Mays. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Baker. Any discussion? Mr. Recorder, please call the roll. Vote, please.
Alderman Baker. Aye. Vice Mayor Duncan.
Aye.
Alderman George.
Aye.
Alderman Mays.
Aye.
Alderman Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Montgomery.
Aye. Ordinance passes 6-0. The City Manager.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to amend fiscal 25 school federal projects fund. Again, the item comes to you from the Board of Education. It's on your agenda for second and final reading. We'd ask that you approve the ordinance, please.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
In order to amend the fiscal year 2025 school federal grant projects fund budget and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
You've heard a reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman Baker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Phillips. Any discussion? Mr. Recorder, please call a roll vote, please.
Alderman Baker.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Duncan.
Aye.
Alderman George.
Aye.
Alderman Mays.
Aye.
Alderman Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Montgomery.
Aye. Ordinance passes 6-0. Mr. City Manager.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to amend the fiscal 25 school special projects fund budget. Again, from the Board of Education on your agenda for second and final reading. We'd ask that you approve this ordinance, please.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
In order to amend the fiscal year 2025 school special projects fund budget and to fix the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the ordinance. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Mays. Is there any discussion? Mr. Recorder, please call the roll vote, please.
Alderman Baker.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Duncan.
Aye.
Alderman George.
Aye.
Alderman Mays.
Aye.
Alderman Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Montgomery.
Aye. Ordinance passes 6-0. City Manager.
All right, moving into other business. The next item is consideration of a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase playground equipment from Play World for Washington Elementary School utilizing the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract 010521-LTS-8. As we discussed, and actually in a second reading on an earlier item, this is a result of a very generous donation from the Washington PTA, in addition to other dollars that were donated from Washington Elementary School specifically towards this project. Purchase of this allows us to move forward with the acquisition and installation. We'd ask that you approve the resolution authorizing the purchase.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase order to Play World, preferred for the Washington Elementary School playground through Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement number 010521-LTS-8.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the resolution. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman Phillips. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Duncan. Any discussion?
I do want to add, you know, we talk about the funding being pulled from the schools, and there's important things going on there like children learning. But, you know, these are things, there's a piece of equipment removed from Washington that was too dangerous for the playground when my daughter was in kindergarten. She will be in 3rd grade when this piece of equipment gets replaced. And that means, and this is a huge piece of equipment that has been eliminated from that playground. So it's things like that, that when you start pulling $2, $3, $4 million out of schools, I mean, it's things like, you know, so to get this replaced, the PTA, we've done fundraiser after fundraiser after fundraiser to try and help offset this cost. So, you know, that's just, it's things like this, and then, you know, the other stuff like education, that also, that it gets impacted by money being pulled out of our Kingsport City schools. So, excited for this to be in when she's in 3rd grade.
Thank you. Any other discussions, questions? Okay. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. Resolution passes 6-0. City Manager.
Next item is consideration of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute contract to engage the firm of Brown, Edwards and Company LLP to audit the financial statements of the city of Kingsport for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025, with expected annual renewals for fiscal years 26 and 27. This is a renewal with the existing firm, Brown Edwards, that has been in charge of our audit for many years now. They've done an outstanding job, working very well with city staff, and then ultimately their presentation to the audit committee and then to the board of mayor and aldermen at the end of each calendar year. We are pleased with the renewal. You see the values there, the annual increases that are coming with this, as well as the deliverables that Brown Edwards will be asked to provide us. We'd ask that you move forward with approval of this resolution authorizing the mayor to execute this contract.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
A A resolution approving an agreement with Brown, Edwards and Company LLP for audit services for fiscal year ending June 30, 2025, and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement and all the documents necessary and proper to effectuate the purpose of the agreement.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the resolution. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman George. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Mays. Any discussion?
Chris, is this a 3-year contract? I know that we have, that says, that we can dissolve the relationship. Sounds like we have an out every year, but is this a 3-year contract?
Yes, my understanding. Travis, is that correct?
It is to obtain a favorable pricing. We quoted it for 3 years with the assumption that we will renew. But we have to renew with the state through a separate contract each year through the comptroller's office. So we would have it out.
We have an option to, if next year we chose to go somewhere else, we can do that.
100%, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Resolution passes 6-0. The city manager.
Next item is consideration of resolution to amend the engineering agreement with Barnes Design Solutions for a water quality assessment of the South Fork of the Holston River. Had quite a bit of discussion on this earlier in May when Ryan was walking through the budget for our wastewater. A lot of conversations regarding the order of magnitude in terms of the contract. Moving forward in various phases of this, but this is very, very important work that we are doing to understand the various different biologies within the South Fork. You see the amendment to the contract that is there of $301,000, a total just over $601,000. Each phase will be brought to the board for approval, but again, this is a very valuable information for us as we continue to monitor that river in conjunction with TDEC.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
A resolution approving an amendment to the engineering agreement with Barnes Design Solutions for water quality assessment of the South Fork of the Holston River and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the resolution. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman George. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Mays. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Resolution passes 6-0. City manager.
Next item is consideration of resolution authorizing a change order for exterior facade renovations for Allendale Mansion. Thanks to a very generous donation from the Friends of Allendale, which we had on the agenda at our last meeting, able to move forward with accepting the alternate that was presented by the construction firm that's already under contract to do work at the mansion. This allows us to move forward with those items that you see described within the executive summary. And we would ask that you move forward with the amendment or the change order for the exterior facade renovations, the Allendale Mansion. Mayor, please.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
A resolution approving change order number 1 to the contract with Consa Construction for the exterior facade renovations for Allendale Mansion, authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary and proper to effectuate the change order.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the resolution. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Alderman George. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Duncan. Any discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Resolution passes 6-0. The city manager.
Next item is consideration of resolution to approve a temporary right-of-way easement with Kingsport Power. This has to do with the upcoming construction of State Route 126 Memorial Boulevard. We'd ask that you move forward with the approval of the temporary right-of-way easement with Kingsport Power, AEP. Mayor?
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, please publish.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a temporary right-of-way easement with Kingsport Power Company.
Thank you. You've heard a reading of the resolution. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion for approval by Vice Mayor Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Baker. Any discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Resolution passes 6-0. Mr. City Manager.
All right, no items on the consent agenda, so we'll move into the communications. Again, we've talked about the budget. I feel like we've talked about the budget, as Alderman May said, every day since he came onto the board, and we have. But I greatly appreciate the amount of time that you all have given us this year on working on what has arguably been one of the more challenging budgets that I've been part of. So I thank you for that. I realize that any time that we're sitting here asking our citizens and businesses to pay more, that as Vice Mayor said, it's not anything we take lightly. From a staff level, it's not anything we take lightly. So we share those comments and we share those concerns. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff that has worked on this over the last, really, as I stated to you all earlier, last 2 years working to get us here. It has been a budget that has been met with a tremendous amount of challenges. As Alderman Phillips said, a tremendous amount of revenue pulled out from under us, and we've had to make adjustments along the way, and that has been challenging. But from the budget office with John and Noel, from the finance department led by Travis, utilities, Ryan, Nikki, Chad, you all have been very instrumental in working on a budget that has a huge regulatory pressure on it, as well as capital. From the HR standpoint, looking at countless amounts of data as we have really looked at throughout the region to help compare and understand where we are and to find out how far we're behind. And so that has been greatly appreciated, the work that has been done by all of these folks. On the regional sales tax side, Michael has jumped in with both feet since coming on board. He's talked extensively with you all about the pressures on that. But this is obviously something that, in addition to managing leisure services, he's been tasked with. And so greatly appreciate the amount of time that he has put into it. So again, I know we still have second reading to go later this month. But I just greatly appreciate the support that the board has given us, the confidence you have in us to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, which we try to demonstrate 365 days out of the year. Personally, I appreciate the fact that you all have stayed true to the rate plan. Stated in the budget presentation back in May, there was 20 years ago when, for reasons I can't explain, we went away from that rate plan. To some extent may find us where we are today. So staying on those things, following the recommendations, asking the hard questions. I appreciate that you all have done that, not just with utilities and as it pertains to the rates, but across all funds. With that, Mayor.
Thank
turn it over to
you. Thank you. Alderman Hayes, you want to go first?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have any comments tonight. I do have a question of the city manager or anyone on the board. I read in Times News about the Fort Henry Mall development, particularly the IMAX Theater. And I regret I couldn't make the meeting today due to work, but do you have any additional information or updates?
So we asked John Mulheron with Whole Properties to attend the Economic Development Board meeting to provide an update. He talked about the construction schedule and the fact that really when we meet again as an Economic Development Board in July, we should know the firm as well as the construction schedule. They very much anticipate breaking ground in the next probably 60 days is kind of the message that they delivered today. So long time coming, a lot of insight into the delay. They've been in the process of acquiring their partner on the mall. So now Whole Properties is the sole owner of Fort Henry Mall, and they are ready to begin making investments. I stated in the meeting that when the private sector is willing to make investments to attract new retail or to support existing, that's really when we see progress and growth across all sectors of the private sector economy in Kingsport. The mall is one of those, and Hull is now in a position of being the sole owner to begin making those investments. So Not only did we talk about IMAX, we also talked about the opportunities for out parcel development on that site and the desire that all parties have to see that begin to ramp up. And they very much believe once they put a shovel in the ground for IMAX that we're going to begin seeing a big uptick in that. So I definitely think as we talk about expanding the tax base and the things that we need to do to drive additional revenue into our budget, legacy retail center such as Fort Henry Mall that's not performed at the level we all would like to see it at. Hopefully, as we move into fiscal '26, it kind of has a new day.
Very good, thank you.
George?
I think we've got Public Safety Day, is that this Friday? Which is Monday, this Monday, which is another exciting time where all the kids can come out and play with all your equipment. And they even let some adults come out and look at all the cool equipment that our public safety officers have. And it will be at Farmers Market again. And what's the time on that?
10 to 2.
10 to 2. So, you know, it said, I had a crazy day and did not get to go to Public Works Day, first time in forever, and I'm not over that, but I'm gonna come to Public Safety Day and play on all the new equipment you all have and look at everything. So it is a great time, and thank you guys for doing that. We also have some ribbon cuttings. I think we're cutting the ribbon on the library and in the mall. So that will be done, and we have a ribbon cutting for Landry's Landing that I know James will mention in his comments. So, and I just want to thank the city manager, thank the staff. I know how many meetings we've sat through, and you all have had to be there with us every single time, and even doing all the presentations and all the work before. So, you know, I'm sure we're not going to have a meeting where we don't talk about budget, but I would be glad not to have 27 meetings in 1 month where we talk about budget. So, I am glad to be moving forward. Thank you guys for all your hard work. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Alderman Baker.
Mayor, I had to leave the work session yesterday a little bit early, and I want to tell Chief DeBerry, thank you for the work of the fire department. We had a fire in one of the buildings on our main campus, and you know, our staff commented about the professionalism of the fire department and the hard work. And I think it was about a 2-hour battle on that fire just to keep it where it needed to be. So you know, you talk about services like water and sewer and police and fire, and it's one of them things until you experience it not being there or something bad happening. And I am confident that if the fire department had not been able to respond the way they did, we could have had a major loss yesterday. So thank you all. Chief Phipps, thank you for that. We had some officers there that helped, I think, with traffic. We had some people who were doing sightseeing, wanted to take pictures, but just the professionalism of public service was really, really good. It's really, you step back and go, that's what Kingsport's all about. So thank you all for that and your departments. That's it.
Alderman Phillips.
Not much. Just wanted to say Carriage House is having their 50th anniversary of being in business at 4 o'clock on Thursday. And Terry has just done an outstanding job with that business. They've been in 4 or 5 different locations in the city and always have a great business. So excited to go. 50 years is nothing to sneeze at. So excited to go celebrate that. Hopefully everybody saw it made its rounds on social media, but Southern Craft is, you know, as we've invested in Main Street, private business is now investing in Main Street. Southern Craft is put up a sign that they are opening a location in the old Pappy's and there on taking that whole block, I guess, on Main Street. So excited about that. And then we do have a ribbon cutting tomorrow. We have finished a set of townhome development for Landry's Landing. So Landry will be cutting the ribbon on her townhomes tomorrow at 4:30. And just another building that mine and Crystal's marriage has survived, so we are stronger. But that's it. Just thanks for everybody's hard work on the budget. I know it's as a board member, normally budget season is not too bad, but I feel like I've been to more board meetings and more meetings on budget and other things this year than I have in the previous 5 years, 6 years combined. It's been a lot of work for us, and we're not even city staff, you know, so appreciate everything everybody's done. That's it.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everybody said. We appreciate all the work that's went into the budget. I know it's been difficult, and so it's appreciative. So, I don't have very much either. Just, we've got so many exciting projects across our city right now, and it's like, the city manager mentioned today on the KEDB and the mall property. We're seeing, you know, some potential things that could come up there as out parcels, and then we've got, you know, our downtown, like Alderman Phillips mentioned with Southern Craft, but we've got some other opportunities down there. Brickyard Park, hopefully will be going sometime maybe in June, and we'll have a stick in the ground for that. And if you haven't been up there, it's just pretty amazing, really, of the work it's done with sidewalks and roads. And that's an exciting project. So we're looking forward to that. We've had some buildings downtown that we've had a concern with for quite some time, and so it looks like that maybe some of those may be renovated at some point here in the future, we hope. So we've got a lot of exciting things all across our cities. Appreciate it, Mayor.
Thank you. City Manager, thank you for the work you've done on this budget. I've seen the strain on your face for the last couple of months. I know that you didn't take this lightly. I know moving forward that you will work on the efficiency items that's been mentioned. And maybe we as a board maybe need to look at some time frame in the next year where we get a report back on a quarterly basis how we're doing on the efficiency. So thank you very much. This means adjourned.
You have to kick me.
How it is?